Summary financial statements are condensed versions of full financial statements, containing less detail while still providing a structured representation of the entity's economic resources, obligations, and changes during a specific period. Summary financial statements offer a simplified, high-level view of the company's financial data without the full details present in the complete audited financial statements. Summary financial statements contain less detail than the full financial statements, but still adhere to a financial reporting framework, ensuring that they present essential financial data. Summary financial statements provide a high-level view without including the detailed notes and disclosures that accompany full financial statements. However, they should indicate their derivation from the full audited statements. Summary financial statements are a concise version of the full audited financial statements, containing less detail while remaining consistent with the full financial data. SA 810 specifies that an auditor should ordinarily accept an engagement to report on summary financial statements only if the auditor has conducted the audit of the full financial statements from which the summary financial statements are derived. Before accepting such an engagement, the auditor must determine whether the criteria used by management in preparing the summary financial statements are appropriate and acceptable. SA 810 does not require the auditor to review detailed internal control documents for summary financial statements, as it focuses on verifying the consistency between the summary and the audited financial statements. Management must acknowledge its responsibility for the preparation of summary financial statements and ensure that the audited financial statements are accessible to intended users without undue difficulty. The auditor must ensure that the criteria used by management for preparing the summary financial statements lead to a fair and accurate reflection of the full financial statements to avoid misleading users. A primary procedure under SA 810 is for the auditor to compare the summary financial statements with the audited financial statements to ensure they agree in that the summary is a fair reflection of the full financial data. SA 810 requires auditors to assess whether the summary financial statements clearly disclose the criteria used in their preparation, ensuring that the financial summaries are consistent with the full audited statements. A full audit of internal controls is not required for summary financial statements. Under SA 810, the focus is on ensuring the summary is consistent with the audited financial statements and not misleading. One of the key tasks of the auditor is to ensure that the summary financial statements present financial information at an appropriate level of aggregation, avoiding any material misrepresentation or misleading information. SA 810 requires the auditor to ensure that the summary financial statements specify where the full audited financial statements are available to allow users to refer to the complete set if needed. The auditor's report on summary financial statements must include a reference to the audited financial statements, indicating that the summary is derived from the full set of audited financial data. When the full financial statements contain a modified opinion, the auditor's report on summary financial statements must reference this opinion and describe the basis for it to maintain consistency and transparency. The auditor must ensure that the summary financial statements disclose their summarized nature. If they do not, the auditor's report must highlight this deficiency, ensuring that users understand the limitations of the summary. The introductory paragraph of the auditor's report must clearly state that the summary financial statements are derived from the audited financial statements and refer to the original set of audited statements. The auditor's report on summary financial statements must clarify that while the summary is consistent with the audited financial statements, it does not replace the need to read the full financial statements. When summary financial statements include comparative information from prior periods that were audited by a different auditor, the current auditor must include a reference to the previous auditor and their report. The auditor should ensure that any unaudited supplementary information is clearly distinguished from the summary financial statements to avoid confusion among users. When the auditor's report on the full financial statements contains a qualified opinion, the report on the summary financial statements must include a reference to the qualified opinion and describe the basis for it to ensure transparency. When the full financial statements receive an adverse opinion, it would be contradictory to express any opinion on the summary financial statements. So, the auditor must state that it is inappropriate to express an opinion. The auditor's report on the summary financial statements must include a reference to any emphasis of matter paragraph in the full financial statements, as it helps users understand important issues that may affect the summary. If the full financial financial statements include an other matter paragraph. The auditor should assess its relevance to the users of the summary financial statements and include a reference to it if it helps the users understand the summary. When a disclaimer of opinion is issued on the full financial statements, it would be inappropriate for the auditor to express any opinion on the summary financial statements derived from them. If the emphasis of matter paragraph in the full financial statements does not directly affect the summary financial statements, the auditor must assess whether it is relevant for the users of the summary financial statements before including a reference. A restriction on distribution or use is appropriate when the summary financial statements are intended for specific users or a specific purpose to ensure that other users are not misled by the financial statements. Alerting readers that the financial statements are prepared under a special purpose framework helps users understand that the summary financial statements may not meet the needs of general users and may be suitable only for specific users. The auditor must alert readers that summary financial statements prepared in accordance with a special purpose framework may not be suitable for all users and should be interpreted within the context of the specific framework. A restriction on distribution or use is included to ensure that the summary financial statements are used only by the specific users or for the specific purposes for which they were prepared, preventing misuse by unintended users. If the summary financial statements are based on a special purpose framework, the auditor should include an alert to ensure general users are aware that the financial statements may not meet their needs. An alert to readers is required when the summary financial statements are based on a special purpose framework to inform them that the financial information may not be suitable for other users outside the intended scope. A restriction on distribution or use limits the circulation of the summary financial statements to specific users or for specific purposes, ensuring that they are not misused by unintended users. The auditor is responsible for ensuring that the comparative information included in the summary financial statements is consistent with the prior audited financial statements, maintaining the integrity of the comparison. If the prior period's financial statements were audited by another auditor, the current auditor must include a reference to the previous auditor and their report in the summary financial statements, ensuring transparency. The auditor must assess whether the omission of comparative figures is reasonable and does not mislead users of the summary financial statements before deciding whether to include a qualification or other statement. The auditor must ensure that the comparatives in the summary financial statements agree with the prior period's audited financial statements or can be recalculated from them to maintain accuracy and reliability. If there are material inconsistencies between the comparative information and the prior audited financial statements, the auditor must report these discrepancies and may need to modify the opinion on the summary financial statements. If the prior period's financial statements were not audited, the auditor should include a disclosure stating that the comparative figures have not been audited to maintain transparency with users of the summary financial statements.
If the prior period comparatives were subject to a modification, the auditor must refer to the prior period's audit modification in the current summary financial statements to ensure users are aware of the previous issues. SA 810 requires the auditor to ensure that any unaudited supplementary information is clearly distinguished from the audited summary financial statements to avoid confusion for the users. If the unaudited supplementary information is not clearly differentiated, the auditor must include a statement in the report to clarify that this information is not part of the audited summary financial statements. The auditor must evaluate if the unaudited supplementary information presented alongside the summary financial statements might cause users to misinterpret or misunderstand the summary financial data. The auditor should include a clear statement in the report that the unaudited supplementary information is not part of the audit, ensuring that users do not misinterpret it as audited data. If the auditor finds the unaudited supplementary information to be misleading, they must request that it be corrected or clearly separated from the audited summary financial statements. When unaudited supplementary information is included in a document that refers to the auditor's report, the auditor must ensure it is clearly separated from the audited portion to avoid any misunderstanding. If the unaudited supplementary information is not clearly marked as unaudited, users may mistakenly believe it has been audited, which can lead to confusion or misinterpretation.